Welcome back, everybody, to the South Endzone. I am Chad. He is Tyler. We are ready to go. The SEC season is well underway now. We both got our first SEC games out of the way. We didn't know exactly what to expect because the SEC has been taking it on the chin as a conference so far this season against out-of-conference opponents. I think 5-7 is the overall record now. But what do you think? What do you feel about – we'll talk about LSU, Mississippi State a little later, but what do you think about Georgia – taking care of business at home against a South Carolina team that just seemed to come out with guns blazing?
Yeah, we made it way more difficult to take care of business than it might have needed to be. But we were watching it and we were all upset. But I was like, does this not feel more natural for anybody else? Does this not feel more at home? Like that we're struggling with an in-conference team at home. Like a team that we were favored by 27, I think, was something like that, 28 points.
They tried to jinx you too. Gary Danielson did everything he could.
I texted
telling you that your last loss at home was against South Carolina,
Yeah.
And then you and I talked about it last week that Spencer Rattler and that South Carolina program has this Jekyll and Hyde, and you guys apparently you got Mr. Hyde.
Yep,
because they came out angry and ready to play.
We were and I was and then I'm is North Carolina better than us? I'm so confused. I'm confused. But
that North Carolina team that went to the wire with Appalachian State.
Yeah, I was like better than us. I'm confused. It was just a really, really poor first half. We weren't getting home to Rattler. We were. Carson Beck was checking down. We weren't checking down, and we weren't even opening up our offensive weapons like Bowers. We weren't looking at him. Mm-hmm. We started feeding Dejon Edwards more out of the backfield. Eventually, it just the play calling wasn't there, and we would go down 14-3 at the half, and we're like, okay, well, And when you think about it, some of there's some of the guys on the team have yet to know what it's like to lose a college football game.
Right.
And
that's a concern because dealing with adversity
is huge.
Is a thing.
Yeah,
you got to get used to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was like, Jesus, Kirby looks pissed when we're up by 40. I can't imagine what he's about to go in and do to them when we're down 14-3 at home to a team that we should be beating. And we came out, we started looking great. We were getting to Rattler. We were flying all over the field on defense. We were airing it out, finding the right guys. They were gashing us on deep balls in the first half. They were coming across the middle. Our safeties were nowhere to be found, deep. And Rattler looked comfy. And then, second half, we really got home. We were finding the guys we needed to. And we went 21 unanswered in the second half to make it 24-14.
Yeah. So what's the deal with Ladd McConkey? What's
his back? He has a nagging back injury that he's had, I think, throughout the entire offseason. And with a thing like that, you can't twist and turn in the air. You can't get back around for the ball. So that's why he's been out. And we were going into the half, we thought is Carson Beck going to be the starter? You want to throw Vandegrift in just to see if it sparks the team. He stuck with Beck, and Beck figured it out. I think at the end of the day, we talked about it. A game like this where you don't end up losing is really good for your team because you figure out how to deal with adversity and overcome it. You know what I mean?
You guys had a first half loss.
Yeah, we lost the first half.
It doesn't go on your record, but they felt it for a whole 20 minutes.
Yeah, we lost the first half and 14-3. We lost the first half entirely. We did not look good. We looked. It was just Beck was just checking down almost too much, and he was having time. So it must have even been our receivers weren't open downfield, but they are good at getting open. But also the play calling changed. We were did they call Todd Monken on the phone at halftime and be hey, just start sending us plays? We'll be all right. I was we had a bunch of people over, and I was what if we just start a crowdfunding to just buy Todd Monken out of his Ravens contract and bring him back to Athens? And you see the Ravens looking good, so obviously it's working out. But all in all, I think it's a game that we can all, there's things that we're allowed to be, we can be upset about, realize we need to fix, but there's also good that we can take out of that. And we didn't lose. That's fine. You take one on the chin and keep it pushing. All in all, 3-0. Look at it at the UAB next week at night. we'll have some red lights, just like the ones behind me.
There you go.
Going at 7:30.
Yeah, it should be fun. So like you guys have the luxury of you got your wake up call without having to lose by 3 touchdowns in front of a national audience like we did. But you look at things, and I don't know. It's really tough to tell how to gauge this Mississippi State team because
you never know.
After losing Mike Leach, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't help but think that it would have been a radically different Mississippi State offense with Mike Leach. And I mean, we know it would have been radically different in terms of like the scheme.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, in terms of like their energy and the way that they felt comfortable in that system. Will Rogers looked like he was out of sorts. Like LSU just shut him down for the full, like almost the entire first half. And they break off one like big run. Otherwise, they end up with like 30 some odd yards rushing as a team combined for the game. LSU just dominated that thing from start to finish. Jayden Daniels was immaculate. He was 30 of 34, I think. Setting an all-time LSU record for the highest completion percentage with 25 or more attempts at 88.2%. So, it was pretty crazy. And 3 touchdowns. Malik Nabers, hung like 200 plus and multiple touchdowns on them. It was a big day. You look at that LSU. People talk about LSU as being like DBU. You look at some of the guys who've come through: Patrick Peterson, Derek Stingley, Tre'Davious White, Morris Claiborne, all these guys that are in the NFL now or have been in the NFL recently. But like wide receiver, may be a better description because I saw a graphic. I don't have it available here, but I saw a graphic that the top 3 receivers in the history of the NFL for yards in their first 30 games as an NFL receiver are Odell Beckham Jr., Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. Those 3 guys in your first 30 games as a pro, they have the most receiving yards, the top 3. And like Malik Nabers may be on his way to being that guy next, in the next draft. So we'll see. There's a lot, I think, that still needs to be cleaned up. The running game looked a lot better. We still had some issues on the back end because when the front 7 wasn't getting to Will Rogers and he had time to throw, they still made some completions downfield. But I take a little bit of that with a grain of salt because when you're up, 24-7 or 31-7, and then 41-7, whatever it was, it's you wonder how much is just playing soft a little bit and just trying not to get beat deep. Ultimately ended up taking care of business. I was pleased with that, pleased with the way the defense played more than anything. As cool as it was to see Jayden Daniels do what he did from a like perfection at quarterback standpoint, I take it with that grain of salt that it was the opponent that it was. What I was more impressed with was how the defense showed up, because the defense was the biggest liability that I saw these first 2 weeks. And they actually, they answered some questions. Not all of them, but they answered some of those questions. And so now we get to see what things really look like. We still haven't completely seen Harold Perkins go crazy yet.
I texted you before the game started. I was like, "Oh, here he comes!" And then he almost hits.
Well, he was making plays. Yeah. He was flying around making plays. It wasn't sacks. It wasn't strip fumbles or anything like that. But I'm waiting for those moments to come. There's going to be some moments where it's really important, really needed. And actually, if you're going to lose to Florida State anyway, and you've got Grambling week 2 and this game this week, I'm cool if he's saving all those bullets for later.
Yeah, fair.
That's totally fine with me. Totally fine with me. We've got Arkansas coming up this week. It's a home game, first SEC home game of the year, so that should be a pretty crazy atmosphere. It's a night game. I've got some pork belly ready to take care of on the grill, so I'll be doing that. You got to eat a little pig when you're playing the Hogs.
Absolutely,
you know what I'm saying? Like you've got to. So that's what's up with that. But yeah, I was happy to see what I saw from LSU, but I got to be honest, like it was hard not to just want to kind of check out around halftime, because it was such a blowout. But yeah, I was impressed with that. And I actually like what you guys did. I think oftentimes, we're going to get into this a little bit with the Alabama quarterback situation in a minute. But Carson Beck filling the shoes of Stetson Bennett is not a small feat. Like I think there's a lot of expectation that just gets kind of overlooked, that like you can't just expect him to step in with virtually no playing time.
Yeah, none. Actually.
And just be like ready to
be the
go.
guy.
Well, I'm
Be
talking
the
about
guy.
like you've got like spring game and you have your little whoever the BS opponents that you guys have played. That first SEC game, he's played, practice games up till now. This is his first real action. So now you get to see, we had a little bit of an issue with this with Jayden Daniels last year, where he was checking down a lot. He was running the ball a lot more. And now you've seen after the Tennessee game, the coaching staff challenged him. They're like, look, we don't need you afraid to throw 50-50 balls up. We've got elite receivers. Let those guys go make plays. You've got to put the ball out there and let them go make plays. Now, put it in a position where they're the only guy who can make the play, but don't not throw the ball.
Yeah,
don't just throw it away or eat it.
Yeah, give them a chance.
Because you're afraid. Yeah, you've got to go. This is a game of you've got to go out there and it's best against best. And you've got to put your best out there. You can't be afraid. So
you got to trust your teammates too.
Right. And I think Carson Beck will get a little bit of that as we go forward. So let's get into you guys have UAB. I'm not sure what to expect with KJ Jefferson in Arkansas. That loss to BYU at home, kind of ugly. I'm trying not to get too ahead of myself, but I feel like it's going to be tough for Arkansas coming into Death Valley, playing against LSU in the way that they're playing right now. As long as LSU is focused and determined that what happened opening weekend isn't going to happen again, I don't worry about them so much stubbing their toe against an opponent like this.
Yeah.
But you always have to have that little doubt in the back of your mind, right?
Yeah, I think that it's like, but we already kind of named who the person is. It's KJ Jefferson.
Yeah.
You take care of him, and I feel like the rest of it takes care of itself. You know what I mean? He is Arkansas football right now. Like, not to boil it down to really basic, but like you know what I mean? Like everything goes through him. He is a dynamic player as far as their offense is concerned. And he's gonna have to face a crowd at Death Valley. No matter if it's noon Eastern, 11, whatever.
No, it's a night game. It's 6 Central, 7 Eastern. Yeah, it's going to be lit. Yeah.
So he's walking in Death Valley at night, right there behind you, over your shoulder. Like, he's going to be in that very, very stadium with one of the loudest crowds in all of college football. And the band play neck and whatever y'all do down there. And it's going to be tough. And like you say, you're going to unleash Harold Perkins. You're going to get Nabers to keep doing what he's doing. If Daniels keeps trusting and doesn't have to use his feet and is able to hit those 50-50 balls down the field, obviously you said in a good spot. Like you said, like that's your game plan. You limit Jefferson, you take away Arkansas's ability to really do much.
Right. Well, and Logan Diggs is going to be a big part of that. And in the defensive front, stopping the other elements of that game to where you basically make it to where everybody else stays home and plays discipline, and you make KJ Jefferson beat you. And he's got to beat you with Harold Perkins breathing down his neck half the game. That's the way to get it done. So let's look at the rest of the SEC, because there's quite a bit to discuss here as we pull up the scoreboard for this past weekend. So we already have that LSU Mississippi State game that we talked about, 41-14. LSU took care of business amidst all the cowbells. Missouri beating K-State. That's
at home.
That's no small feat. It's at home, but that's no small feat.
I will say this:
solid.
I guess like whatever had happened, like when Missouri came out, like the crowd was booing their starting like their own starting quarterback,
right?
And I saw like their coach like step up for him in a press conference, like, don't boo your starting quarterback. Like that's it was shades of who's the Oklahoma State quarterback? Not quarterback, coach. Mike Gundy.
Mike Gundy.
Yeah, where he's like, don't come at them, come at me,
Come
type
at
of
me.
thing.
Yeah, talk to
Exactly.
me. Yeah.
Yeah. So same thing. Like, I
Speaking of
respect that.
Oklahoma State, what happened to Oklahoma State? Holy cow!
What did happen?
They got washed this weekend. It was ugly.
I'd be lying if I said I was paying attention.
No, it's ugly. It was ugly. It was disgusting. Like I was just like, oh, so they're not that team. Okay.
But shout out to Missouri getting it done
yeah.
at home against a ranked team, no less.
Right. So I'll pull it up here in just a second. But yeah, so Missouri takes care of business, albeit in a close game, with that 61-yard field goal. That was kind of crazy. I don't know if you saw the end of that game, but they took a delay of game.
Yeah.
And it ends up being a 61-yard field goal, and he still made it.
Record, right? That's an SEC record, right?
Yeah, it was going to be a 56-yarder, and they got to delay a game, and he kicked it anyway, and they still made it. But I apologize for just skimming right past that Georgia South Carolina game that we already discussed, but you know the deal.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that I want to talk about. Let's break down this. I don't know if you saw this, but like to me, it was a little bit like watching somebody run around playing the violin while someone else is rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. They were celebrating on a horrible pass that South Florida threw into the end zone that was nowhere near the receiver that the Alabama defender ran over and intercepted, going crazy like they had, won the national championship. And then when they scored, they were going crazy. It was just wild to watch Alabama celebrate what was essentially a 10-3 victory because they punched it in with 30 seconds left just to pad the score to make it look less embarrassing than it actually was.
17-3 is still
17-3 is still ugly because here's why we're saying that. Watch this. This is Alabama versus South Florida. Okay, this is the box score of this game. All right. Alabama 5 of 15 on third downs, 310 total yards, 107 passing yards on 10 of 23 passing. Now, Jalen Milroe did not play in this game.
Nope.
Instead, they went with Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner. Tyler Buckner, the transfer from Notre Dame, and then Ty Simpson, who's a freshman at Alabama. Ty Simpson was 5 of 9 for 73. Tyler Buckner was awful. He was 5 of 13 or something like 5 of 14.
Yeah, he was horrible.
He was terrible. I just want to give you a little bit of a window into what we're talking about with this vaunted South Florida Bulls defense that Alabama struggled with. Okay. This is their first game of the season against Western Kentucky, a game they lost to Western Kentucky. Okay. Western Kentucky was 6 of 16 on third downs with 465 yards of total offense, 336 yards passing, 29 of 50 passing, and still managed 129 yards rushing. Now, you might say, well, that's because Western Kentucky is a pass-happy offense, and so that's more a function of the type of offense they run than anything else. Okay, well then explain to me how Florida A&M also hung 374 yards passing. Now, granted, they only had 19 yards rushing, and so I get it that South Florida was doing a little bit more against the run. But if you look at that game, 29 rushing attempts versus 43 passing attempts, Florida A&M was clearly trying to light it up through the air, and they hung 24 points on the South Florida Bulls team after Western Kentucky hung 42 on them, or 41, whatever it was.
Yeah.
This is an Alabama team that until the last 30 seconds of the game had only scored 10 points. So I'm just saying, it's I don't want to get ahead of myself again.
Yeah, we do that. We could do that, but
we talked about this last week. Are we watching the collapse of an empire?
You can blame. I think you can blame about 15% of it, maybe 10% of it, on the fact they're playing a torrential downpour. But other than that, still, Alabama and a torrential downpour should just be running the ball down your throat for 4 quarters and still putting up, 30 to 40 points.
Yeah, they had 203 yards rushing, but they gave up 177 yards rushing to South Florida. That's the thing, is that when you look at this box score, Alabama gave up. Now, they only gave up 87 yards passing. Okay, kudos to them. And a lot of the rushing was with the quarterback. But that goes back to what we were saying before. This is why a Jayden Daniels, why a Stetson Bennett was effective. Like, Stetson Bennett he's no Cam Newton. He's not, 6'4", 230 or anything like that. But he is a capable runner to where when the play breaks down, he's a danger on his feet. And you have to respect the quarterback draw, and you have to respect the read option and all these other things. That's why I think South Florida did as well as they did against Alabama. But and you see the video clip playing right there where that's the interception. It's just a terribly thrown ball. And if you just protect the ball in that situation, you're in really good shape. And then, of course, Rodell Williams breaks off that long run, that like 48-yarder that pretty much sealed it. But yeah, I don't know that we're witnessing the collapse of an empire, but it certainly feels like it. And I think that it goes back to a lot of the things that we talked about, whether it's the NIL stuff, where now you have more teams able to compete above board with money, the way that some of these bigger programs have been competing for a long time under the table with money.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to talk about it, but it was real. It was true. We all know it happened. And to act as though they didn't look the other way when Mike Krzyzewski did it or Nick Saban did it or some of these different coaches, and then they tried to snag you up if you were persona non grata, or in the case of like USC, they wait until Pete Carroll is in the NFL and Lendale White and Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart are all in the NFL. And then they're like, hey, they were paying those guys.
Yeah.
Like
wait till Reggie has his Heisman already. Right. And
it's wild. Like, let them win a national championship. Let them all go get their money. And then say, hey, I think they were cheating. It's like, well, it's too late now. Like, you don't get to uncelebrate all the stuff that they celebrated.
It was Michigan.
It still happened.
Top 5.
Right, exactly. Right. Like, what are you going to do? You're going to tell Oklahoma, congratulations, you guys actually won the national championship that year. Like, no, they got smoked in the national championship game. Nobody's going to care about that. Yeah. So anyway, I think you have NIL as part of it, but the other part of it, like, there's two things that are really big. One is all of those assistant coaches that Nick Saban has had over the years. They've all moved on, and they have big jobs, and they're beating him now. Yeah. They're head coaches who are now, Jimbo Fisher beat him. Now Steve Sarkisian has beaten him. It used to be nobody could beat him, and Kirby Smart damn near owns him at this point.
Yep.
Like it's he flipped the script on him a couple of years ago, and I wonder if we're witnessing the collapse of the empire, but the final nail in the coffin might be the transfer portal.
Yeah, definitely. That's what
the transfer portal plays a huge role in, like you were talking about before we came on. Alabama can't just stock the locker room full of 5-stars anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they can't. We've talked about it for years and years and years. Like, an Alabama backup in years past is better than so many other team starters. You know what I mean? It's,
now that guy is playing somewhere else.
It's like Bo Scarborough was like the 3rd string running back. You remember him? And he was a monster. Unbelievable. Yep. But because he was sitting behind, I think it was like Derrick Henry and a couple other guys like
Eddie Lacy.
And TJ Yeldon and all that. They got to play. Like, it was, you next man up. But like you said, like he almost like was doing it to where he just kept the 5-stars on his bench so other people couldn't have them at this point. It's like he may never even play them, but as long as they ain't playing for somebody else, they can't hurt me. You know what I mean? And so, but now a 5-star knows their worth, knows another team might want them. Be like, oh, you don't want to play me? Well, I'll go play for somebody else. Maybe even at conference. I might want to go play for Jimbo Fisher, Kirby Smart, Brian Kelly, things of that nature, or even like to a different conference entirely. But still, like, I'm going to go start because I know what I'm worth if you don't want to see it. And so,
a a good comp to that is if you remember way back in the day, Tommy Tuberville had Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, and Brandon Jacobs all on the same roster in the same backfield. Brandon Jacobs transferred out of Auburn, but had to go to a 1AA school, like an FCS school, in order to play. Because that was the rule. Otherwise you'd have to sit out a year. Well, the way it is now, hell no. Like I Caleb Williams, Oklahoma, nope, USC now. Heisman, boom, done. That was not the case before. So yeah, you could keep a Bo Scarborough in hell. And just be like, yeah, man, like suck it up. Buttercup, you gotta just keep going out there and running the ball in the fourth quarter for me.
Yeah, you know? 6'5", 240 runs like a deer. Like, oh well.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It's different. It's different now for sure. For sure. So let's keep it moving through the SEC schedule again, because there's still plenty of other games to go through. I didn't see all of these games, but I saw a good bit of most of them. We won't talk about the Texas A&M UL Monroe game. We saw A&M embarrass themselves against an actual opponent. We will not discuss that one, or Auburn versus Samford. BS games abound. Now, this one right here, Tennessee, Florida.
Yeah, that's the one.
Let's get into that one, because that was it was billed to be a doozy.
For sure.
And Tennessee was heavily favored
by 5.5 when the game started.
And I picked Tennessee to beat this spread. All I did was pick Tennessee to beat the spread. I didn't expect it to go like this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not Tennessee. Florida to beat the spread.
Yeah.
I did not expect it to go like this. I was just thinking like, no, Florida's going to make this a close game in the Swamp.
For sure.
It's not going to be a 10, 14-point game. And it actually was. It was a 13-point game, but in the opposite direction.
Yeah. I mean, they made once again, the announcers have a way of making a point. Like they said, how we hadn't lost in Athens since South Carolina in 2019. They talk about Florida's win streak over Tennessee when it comes to the Swamp. You know what I mean? Yep. Like Tennessee going down to the Swamp has been tough sledding for them year after year. And it just goes to show that it's still the same. And tempers were flaring. And Joe Milton, you know, he could throw it 80 yards, but if the receiver's 40 yards away, what's that going to do? It's like
at some point you got to dial it in. It's not just it's not just a long drive competition.
He's a Jamarcus Russell type. No offense.
We're playing links golf.
He's like
your 400-yard drive is no good here.
It's no good. It's like Jamarcus Russell shades. You know what I mean? He can throw it a mile, but like we don't need you to throw it a mile. Can you throw it 10 yards? Oh, okay. Guess you can't.
Oh, yeah, he could. So I remember back in the day, Jamarcus Russell would throw a screen pass to Joseph Adai in the backfield, and he'd throw it 150 miles an hour right at his knees, and it would just bounce up into the air. Somebody'd pick it off and run it back for a touchdown. I was like, bro, like it's a screen pass. You could have just like floated it to him, and it would have been fine. He had blockers. Now it's over. We lost.
But Florida actually looked like a competent offense for once in this game. Like they actually were.
Billy Napier's a good coach. Like I think he had a lot to overcome, and some of that was at the quarterback position.
Definitely.
And I know, like, you can say what you want to say about Anthony Richardson, but like, we saw it's for whatever reason it seems to be different playing SEC defenses with that kind of skill set. Jalen Hurts comes to mind versus playing like in the NFL. I don't know what it is, but it's like they have enough talent around you that they can keep you clean and make it to where you saw Anthony Richardson had like 2 rushing touchdowns today. So he got hurt on the last one and didn't play the rest of the game. But I just wonder, as Napier gets in, and this Mertz kid is pretty good. Like I think he's solid, and they've got some weapons, and Trevor Etienne is no slouch.
Not at all.
Yeah, and they've got athletes. I mean, it's Florida. Like you're going to have they've been recruiting. They've been in the top 25 recruiting classes. They may not have been in the top 5, but they still bring in athletes.
Question for you.
Yeah.
What is your feeling on Florida quarterback still being able to wear number 15?
It was weird to watch that,
wasn't
honestly.
it?
Like I saw that and I was like, bro, is this a Tebow highlight?
How's
felt
anybody weird for me too.
how is anybody wearing Tebow's number? Like, that's just what. Like, I kind of don't want anyone to wear 9 ever again at LSU. Like, Burrow just like took that number to a whole different level, and no one needs to wear that number again.
Same with 13 at UGA. Like, why?
Unless you do something like what LSU has done. So one of the things I do like about what LSU does is the number 7 is like a number that they pass down. So Will Campbell actually is number 7 this year. But he has to wear a patch with the number 7 on it because an offensive lineman can't wear a single digit number. So he's still 66, but he's got the 7 patch. But Patrick Peterson was 7, Leonard Fournette was 7, Grant Delpit was 7, Tyrann Mathieu was 7. So Matthew was 14, then he became 7. 7 is something you earn. And it's like a badge of honor.
Do that.
And then 18 is another number that LSU uses for that. Jacob Hester had it. Tre'Davious White had it. You had, and what's his name? BJ Ojolari had it last year for LSU. And so it's another one. This year it's Mekhi Wingo, where they pass it down, and it's one of those things that like everybody votes on it. Who's going to wear this number? That's different. But just like, hey, what number do you want? 15. I like, it's kind of like LeBron wearing MJ's number and then trying to pretend like he's better than MJ. It's like, no, bro, like you wearing his number. Maybe you should have gotten your own number and then you wouldn't be like chasing a shadow. But yeah, it was weird. It was definitely weird to see that. So we won't talk about Vanderbilt, UNLV. Vanderbilt it's Vanderbilt, man. I'm sorry, Vandy fans, but you guys aren't good. And I don't know that you're ever going to be, because it's just really hard to compete in the SEC there. I honestly don't know why you're still in the SEC, to be quite honest.
Put them in the Ivy League. Just let them. Just
go play with Dartmouth and like Princeton and Harvard and Yale. Just go play Brown. Just go do your thing. Like,
be with your college.
Y'all are smart. Y'all can figure it out. And so anyway, so then we got BYU Arkansas. That was crazy. Like I think Arkansas, there's some stuff that they'd like to have back in that game, but they gave it up late and then gave up the touchdown late to seal it for BYU, and that's disappointing. Playing in Fayetteville, that was a chance to put a real feather in their cap, but it's another loss for the SEC against a non-SEC school, so it's just ugly. And so is UNLV beating Vanderbilt. But I kind of don't want to count that one. Do we have to claim Vanderbilt? Yeah, does Vanderbilt count against our record? Come on now.
I feel like Vandy has worked themselves into this magical sweet spot where nobody can really be mad at them.
Everybody just feels sorry for them all the time.
It's like, oh, you're trying. That's good for you. Like
they're like the kid that the other team helps score a touchdown.
Yeah, exactly. Make it with kids. Make it with kids.
Yeah, I'm trying to be kind, but you know what I'm talking about. I wasn't going to say it, but yeah. So Kentucky, Akron. I mean, it's Akron. All right, congrats, Kentucky. You got it done. Devin Leary lit it up for 315. Good game, but nothing really impressive there. Georgia Tech, Ole Miss. Ole Miss kept this, let them hang around a little bit too long for my taste. But I can't really blame them, because you got Alabama coming up. So I get it. I understand if you were looking ahead a little bit. You just came off of what was a much more real opponent last week in Tulane, and you kind of had a squeaker there too, even though the score belied what the actual outcome of that was. But that game was actually, if you look at it, let's pull up the box score, because I'll show you what I'm talking about here. This was not they had. I guess I got to go to the recap. Is that where the no, I don't want to read about it. Okay, there we go. Nope, it's still going to be the same thing. Well, what I was trying to find, I'm not going to find it, so we'll get off of this. It was like a 1 touchdown game, and then Ole Miss scored, and then they made a stop, and then they scored again, and then they got a pick six. And so it the same thing as what happened last week with Tulane. where a game that was within a score became a 3-score game really, really quick. Or in that case, like it was a 4-score game where they won by 25. So I don't know. We'll see. This is going to be a crazy week. There's a lot of really, really good games. I think that's probably the next thing that we should do is
definitely
go ahead and look at what's coming up for the SEC, because SEC week 4 is kind of wild. There's some really, really good games. What are you looking forward to most in this week? LSU Arkansas, obviously, for selfish reasons, I'm really interested
Auburn
in.
A&M.
Yeah,
that jumps out to me right away. We're finally starting, some conference play. Vanderbilt, Kentucky. What jumps out to me looking at this screen alone is Auburn A&M, and then Ole Miss and Bama.
Ole Miss, Alabama. Yeah,
because the way that Alabama's looking, if they just, they had a tough. They were, like I said, torrential downpour, backup quarterbacks, whatever you want to say. They had a tough time with the University of South Florida. What do you think that Lane Kiffin, another Sabin assistant, if I'm not mistaken, right, is coming? Are they in Tuscaloosa? Let me make sure.
Yeah, they're in Tuscaloosa.
At Alabama. And
it's the CBS 2:30 kickoff too. So it's Gary Danielson and Brad Nessler. So
perfect. So then Gary's going to be having a time of his life. Hopefully not, but he's going to be on thin ice the whole game. I think that's a winnable game for Ole Miss, given how Alabama's looked.
If you want to know really how bad it is for Alabama, listen to Gary Danielson's tone as he starts the broadcast.
Yep.
Because you'll get a hint if because he's watching film, he's looking at this stuff, and if he's seeing the same stuff that I'm seeing, what he's seeing is Alabama getting whipped up front the last 3 years, and Alabama not having elite Heisman caliber quarterback play. They still have good receivers. They still have good running backs, still have good linebackers and safeties and corners. It's the beef is where they're and I think it goes back to what you were saying. A lot of times we often look at like quarterbacks, running backs, receivers in the transfer portal. What we can overlook a lot of times is that O-line, D-line, linebacker, safety. Where it's not as glitzy, but that's where the SEC teams have typically made their bread is
O-lineman
whipping people up front. O-line, D-line.
Yep.
If I can whip you up front, I don't care how fast you are. You're not getting to the quarterback, and eventually one of those receivers is going to get open. Or I'm going to pound it down your throat, and these 4-star running backs are going to just go nuts on you and wear you out by the fourth quarter. This I know maybe it didn't jump out at you, but UTSA and Tennessee, I think Tennessee could be on the ropes a little bit here.
You think?
And this is an opportunity for UTSA to come in to an atmosphere where they have a chance to make a statement. And Tennessee is just feeling like they're licking their wounds. It's going to be a little bit of a letdown coming off of an embarrassing loss. That you may even have some suspensions coming after, because you saw some of the stuff. Florida and Tennessee both
had their hands up.
They were ready. They were squared up, ready to box. So and the same thing. Charlotte's not on that level, I don't think, with UTSA, but Charlotte, Florida, Florida, don't get ahead of yourselves.
Yeah, UTSA.
You're 2-1. You just got to win. Don't blow it.
I'm pretty sure UTSA was almost won, if not did win, or was competing for their conference last year.
Yeah, they were.
And if you was the other game that caught my eye, which we scrolled past, was the Auburn A&M. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I hope Auburn wins. I can't stand Jimbo Fisher. I can't stand A&M fans. Texas 8-4 is never going to not be funny. And until they prove that they can, because here's the thing. So you and I both know what this means, because we are fans of teams that are actual winners. Win national championships, win SEC championships, win at least their division championship.
Yes.
Texas A&M fans, Mississippi State fans. So Mississippi State fans are a little less obnoxious. They're still annoying with those damn cowbells.
Mhm.
And if they beat you, they act like they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it's like, but you still haven't won anything. Like all you're good for is ruining my season.
Pretty
And
much.
you're never gonna amount to anything. Like
Yep.
it's all you can do is come in here and you're like, well, if I can't win it, you're not gonna win it either. Like going before King Solomon and saying, yes,
Mhm.
split the baby, please. I don't care. That's what I see as Texas A&M as being. Like Auburn, I can't say that because Auburn's actually won national championships.
Mhm. The
You know,
SEC
and
championships.
they
Beating us.
they went to another one.
Yeah.
They've won SEC West and SEC overall
Mhm.
championships. Alabama, like as much as I can't stand them,
They win.
and the what if that I saw on ESPN the other day was just so frustrating. Like
What?
it's just like, so if Rich Rodriguez takes the Alabama job, he's probably still coaching there, and they may have won like one national championship or two, but it's not Sabin. And Sabin, if he stays at Miami, because Miami brings in Drew Brees instead of Dante Culpepper, the Saints don't win a Super Bowl, and the Dolphins probably win a couple.
That's a
And
big
Nick
what if.
Saban's there. Yeah. And so, it's like, damn. And then I look at it and it's like, wow. So we traded a Drew Brees Super Bowl for the Les Miles era and the one Joe Burrow season, for Nick Saban and all of what he's done at Alabama that he would have done at LSU. Because what probably happens is Nick Saban, if he stays in the NFL, where LSU is probably, even with Les Miles, is probably still ruling the SEC. Because I don't know what happens with Kirby Smart if there's no Nick Saban.
Agreed.
You know what I'm saying?
Like Kirby
like
Smart
what
came
happens
from Nick
there?
Saban in Alabama.
And Les Miles, like for a little while there, like Miles was 4-3 against Saban and was in and out of the SEC championship for a couple of years. So
shoot, we could be going on year 20 of Mark Richt.
Right. So it's just wild to think about. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, so that's where that is. But yeah, I Texas A&M, Auburn, go Tigers yet again, because the sooner Texas A&M fans get to realize that they're still their team is still trash, the better.
Yep, I completely
because they're annoying. Kentucky Vanderbilt, I don't care. Although they do have a good quarterback matchup there, where you have like the SEC leader in passing, and then Devin Leary, who should be one of the leaders in passing, and I guess he's kind of there. Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe. I'm assuming we're going to get Milroe back again. I think he just got sent to timeout this week.
Yep.
And this is where things are now.
They realize there's nothing better, so they're going to put him right back in.
We went through these two. We already went through Arkansas, LSU, UAB, Georgia. You guys should be fine. Memphis, Missouri, and then Mississippi State, South Carolina. So this, I was going to tell you about this. So this Mississippi State, South Carolina game is the game where we get to see, and we get to talk about it next week, which one of us is for real. Because if Mississippi State beats the piss out of South Carolina, okay, then it's like, okay, well, wait a second. Like, who's the real threat here in the SEC? Is it us or is it you? It looks like it might be us. If South Carolina beats the piss out of Mississippi State, then it's like, okay, well, that makes sense because we beat the piss out of Mississippi State too. And that means we could probably hang with you like South Carolina did and maybe even beat you. Who knows? If it's a really close game, then we have a lot to talk about, because then we can kind of like dig into it and analyze it a little bit. That's the one I'm most interested in.
That will be interesting. I didn't even realize that was this week's matchup. That's going to be very interesting.
It's the who we both played last week.
Listen, I love the transitive property of sports. I really do. It's one of the best things that ever exist.
I actually might build some graphics around that to show, like, how it's like. Because there used to be a thing. My dad used to work for a company that they put out like a newsletter. They had a little mailer that went out every week, and each week it had like it was called Round and Round They Go, and it was basically like this team beat this team, and that team beat this team, and that team beat that team, and then it goes around and it ends up eating itself.
That's funny.
Where like the team that won ended up losing to one of the teams that lost along the way, and it all just kind of the snake ate its own tail.
That's funny,
kind of thing. So yeah, so it's it was definitely funny and a lot of I think that's a lot of fun just to look at. It doesn't really mean anything because we know how this goes. You know, people make changes, guys get hurt, all kinds of reasons for this to go the way. So we talked a little bit about Alabama. I think at the very least we can say that the path is considerably smoother to an SEC championship and a playoff berth than it has been in years past, where it looked like, okay, it's Alabama and everybody else. Now it's like, okay, it's Georgia and everybody else sort of, but there's still like people questioning whether Georgia should be number one, and Alabama's fallen out of the top 10 for the first time in 8 years.
Yeah, that was one thing. I was watching it, and like one of the guys mentioned, he was like, "Do you think that we might not be number one?" I was like, "Shoot, it might be better off if we're not. If we're being honest,
that's facts, man."
I'm like, I wouldn't be upset about it even a little bit if we weren't number one anymore, because then we have something to work for.
Right.
You know what I mean? You want to set a goal. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
right.
You know, have something to work for week in and week out.
Yeah, the best thing that could happen for y'all is like get into like week 8 and then like have like an ugly win. You're still undefeated, or maybe it's just like a loss that doesn't really stop you from getting where you need to go, but it knocks you out of that spot to where then it's like, okay, wake up call. Let's go climb back up the mountain. Because being on the top of the mountain for too long
is bad.
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Yes, it is. And it's like, I don't know if it's more stressful the time of like working and being so close was more stressful. That's honestly more fun though, is like to be rooting for the team that's trying their hardest so much to like get to where they're going versus like trying not to lose ground from, being at the very top.
Right.
But you can only go one way, and eventually, like I said, there's kids, there's people on our team that don't know what it's like to lose a college football game, and that can do a lot of different things. But one thing I would love to talk about is, and it's hilarious. We talk, this is an SEC show, but if you do enough, we'll talk about you.
It's valid. It's valid though. It's valid though, because what if the guy you're about to talk about ends up at Texas, Alabama, LSU, like Florida, you know what I mean? Like it could get crazy. Ole Miss or something like that, like
Deion Sanders is making Colorado a team that you really can't not talk about when it comes to college football. And like we haven't really talked much about the Big Ten matchups. We haven't really talked much about the Big 12, or
we'll get to that when it actually matters.
When it matters, exactly.
When Ohio State's beating the piss out of Western Kentucky, who beat South Florida, who almost beat Alabama, we'll get to that when they're playing real games.
But I was questioning so deeply why this was the college game day game, and why they didn't go down to the swamp to watch Tennessee, Florida. Or that could have been a game, but they went out there and it turned into their Colorado State's head coach talking shit, Deion being like, "Oh, now it's personal." The whole nation's like, "Oh, we're gonna lose by 40 on national television." Right. And it turns into Deion and his team having to come back, in that game, and then something that
and a lot of dirty play too. Let's not skate by the fact that they sent Travis Hunter to the hospital on a horrible late hit, and that dude should have been ejected and should not have been playing anymore. There's way lesser plays that people get ejected from games and suspended.
Send him to the hospital.
Send him to the hospital on a clearly way late, way after the ball hit the ground, direct targeting play that they didn't even. There wasn't anything.
Yeah.
And they gave him a late hit, but that's all.
But the fact, people have been ejected for way less.
Yes,
you legitimately sent the kid to the hospital, and you're still playing in this game. Okay,
But it added a little bit of spice to it. I'm not gonna lie.
Well,
Like
yeah.
it was crazy already, but that just sent it to like another level where it's like, oh, this is personal.
Yeah,
Like
it's
legit, like
very
real,
personal.
really personal.
Like we all knew what Deion was saying to his team throughout the week, but we didn't get to hear much of what was it Jay Norvell, right?
Jay Norvell, yeah.
The head coach of Colorado State was saying to his team.
Mhm.
I'm sure he was getting them fired up just as much.
Yeah. Well, he did his whole sunglasses and hat thing where he took his hat and his sunglasses off. And he's like, "This is how I talk to adults."
Yeah,
it's like,
and
okay, bro. Like whatever, man. Like this is like such a dumb thing to like flex.
Turned into a hell of a game. And I think it is a little corny. Like, no offense, Colorado. I understand. Like, listen, you guys won one game last year. I kind of, in a little bit of a way, see the excitement. I get it. But storming the field twice, back-to-back weeks, especially against a team that y'all were gonna supposedly beat by 40. That you had
you were 24. Again? You were 24-point favorites.
Yeah,
and you rushed the field because you beat them in
double overtime.
Like what? What are you talking about? Like imagine Alabama rushing the field because they beat Kentucky. In double overtime,
exactly,
or triple overtime, or
whatever.
Like,
I think that you guys are rivals. Like, I know it's the in-state rivalry. It is, but like, come on, like, you gotta. I know that technically they really haven't been there before since like the '90s, but like, you gotta class it up just a little bit. Like, there's no disrespect. Like, I totally get the excitement of the situation, but you gotta, you're getting your school fined for run on the field against a team that y'all should just demolish. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Like,
it's
realize the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting the next few weeks. They get Oregon at USC. Eugene this week, and then they get USC and Caleb Williams,
which is the two games,
and Lincoln Riley,
which is the two games everybody's been waiting to see. Like,
what
are they going to do against those two?
I think they're going to get smoked, but we'll see. I thought they were going to do better, and then I thought it was I was like, oh, all right, well, so much for that. And then when they punted the ball out at the 2-yard line, I was like, you know what, like, the odds are pretty stacked against them right now. It's a good time to go drop a little bet on this game.
Because I wanted to
bet you the script says they should come back and win this game, and so let's just see if I'm right about this script.
Yeah,
no, it's really, I think it's good for football, like, to have some. It was a very people were watching who don't even watch football.
Dude, I was watching. I never watched West Coast games ever, and I stayed up to watch it. You know what I mean? Like,
for real.
It's they're doing their job right. That's all I gotta say.
Yep. For sure.
Shout out to Deion and the Buffalo staying undefeated.
So we'll see. We'll talk about it again when they play Oregon State this week, and we'll see how they fare in that one. But that is a wrap for this edition of the South End Zone. We look forward to. I think it's the odds are still looking pretty good that we might be on a collision course yet again to meet in Atlanta. So let's hope that happens. And for Tyler, I am Chad. We appreciate you guys coming. Don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe. Sharing is the biggest thing, because like if you like what you hear here, you enjoy the show, just share it with your friends, other SEC fans, even if they're not LSU Georgia fans. Just share it with them, and everybody. Then we can keep the love spreading. We appreciate y'all coming out. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
Later.